radio. There's a free version. There's also a version that costs 99 cents. It is a one-time fee, and that will make it compatible. We are working on an app here, and we should hopefully have that pretty soon for you to download so you can listen to the show right here on your iPhone or whatever. I don't even know how it works. Amy, we're talking with State Representative Amy Volk this morning. Amy, do you know anything about apps?
I have a Droid. So
what does that mean?
Well, they're different apps than the iPhone apps. Like, Droid is always sort of one step behind Apple, I think.
So a Droid is what, somebody else's version of an iPhone?
Yeah, it's Motorola.
And so what do you do with an app? Explain that. People keep saying it's an application. Explain to me what that is.
I think it's like a computer program for your phone. You know, I mean, like we still can download computer programs,
right.
And it just...
So basically, you go in and you download this, and then it's kind of like, I don't know what software it would be.
It's a little gadget.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, we're working on one. I don't even know what it means.
You're clearly not the one doing the work.
I have one of these little things. It does have a keyboard, but my hands are so fat I can't use it. So
I've seen you texting your kids.
Well, my kids. That's about it. My children. That's it. Because I don't text anybody else.
Well, that's the only way you can communicate with teenagers.
Well, that's probably true. That's
my daughter can be upstairs in her room, and she's directly above us. And you know, if I try to talk to her, I get nothing. If I start texting her, suddenly we're having a conversation.
You know, it's funny you say that because our daughter's bedroom is above the dining room in our home, and a lot of times they'll be on Facebook, and Dee Dee will go to Facebook chat and say, "Girls, it's time for dinner," and that's how she calls them for dinner. That's a lot different than Ma ringing the bell outside. Yeah. Boys, come in.
Cuts down on the yelling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're talking with State Representative Amy Volk, who is a representative out of Scarborough, the coastal area. You are on the Labor Committee of the Maine legislature.
Labor and Commerce.
Labor and Commerce. Oh, excuse me. Labor and Commerce. Yes, that's right. We renamed that, didn't we?
Yeah.
You dealt with a rather contentious bill last session. It was what I'll call the ending of fair share, and that was tabled until January. Tell us what's going on with that.
Well, it wasn't the ending of fair share. We did hold a hearing, and we had a very long hearing. In fact, it was on my birthday, so that was fun. What it basically boiled down to was it was the end of the session, and the bill seemed to be still in flux. It was changing a lot. Our own legal analyst had a hard time keeping up with the legal aspects of it. And there were members of our committee who had pledged to not vote on that issue.
Yeah.
And you know, I wasn't one of them. I was listening to all sides. I was making up my mind. And in the end, we just decided that we really didn't have the ability, that we wanted to get it right if we did it at all. And so we decided to wait. And it gives people that on the committee that had made certain promises to go back to their constituents and really have a discussion about what we were talking about. We weren't talking about right to work. We were talking about the garnishment of union dues from public sector employees.
Right, which, and let's just remind everyone what fair share is. We have a state employees union, and you can belong to it or not, but if you don't belong to it, you have to pay what they call the administrative cost of the work they do for you.
Right.
And that is administrative. You don't pay for the quote-unquote political portion of that. My argument with it is, I mean, I'm morally opposed to fair share. I think it's just wrong. I don't think that people should get any benefit from the union if they don't pay for it. But I think you can sign a waiver saying, you know, that I won't be represented if there's a grievance. I won't do any of that. don't want to be a part of anything you're doing.
Exactly.
I think it has to be one way or the other. But my big problem with the fair share, the way Maine does it, is that State Senator Ethan Strimling at the time, who's now running for mayor, put in a bill in 2007 that required the mandatory confiscation of fair share dues, whether the employee agreed to it or not. So it's automatically taken out of the paycheck, and the employee has no say over it. I find that morally wrong and don't understand why anyone would believe that our state government should be a collection agency for the union.
Yeah, and actually, as the bill sort of wound down, we did get to that point where that's all we were going to take off the table was the garnishment of the wages.
And so why didn't we do that? Because that's a moral high road for us. You could leave fair share, the concept, on the table for the bargaining table. Chris Quinn, the head of the MSEA, has been in here many times talking about it.
I've heard him.
That could have been left on the bargaining table. But removing the mandatory confiscation of the wages, I don't understand how anyone, unless you're just so in tank for the union you don't care, would think it's okay for the government to take money from you without your consent.
I think what it came down to was there had been so much publicity and people were so worked up that there were certain members of the committee who felt they had made a promise that they did not want to break without being able to have a conversation, at least with the people that they'd made that promise to, because the impression was still that we were, you know, getting rid of fair share, even though all it would have been was basically, I mean, you know how the press is.
So why didn't we clear? I guess this is the part that I have always struggled with our party, and you and I are both Republicans. Why didn't we just clear it up? The facts were you weren't going to get rid of fair share. The facts were you were just going to end this immoral confiscation of money. Why not just clear that up and then pass that bill?
I think that one of the problems that we as Republicans have is that, with the exception of people like you and maybe a few other outlets in the state, it is very difficult for Republicans to get our message out. And that's a fact. We're dealing with a biased media that doesn't want people to know that all we were doing was getting rid of the garnishment by the state of people's wages. That part of it would have been buried deep in the article.
Well, I mean, that's true, but over time the truth would have come out, I guess. And it seems to me that it would have been a lot easier if we passed this in May to have 18 months to explain it before the next election than to have theoretically. I mean, do you think it'll pass in January? My fear is that it's an election year and it's going to require courage for people to do this, and there's usually not a lot of courage in election years.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a freshman.
All right, let me
I can tell you which way I hope it'll go.
Let me be more direct. If a bill comes before you, and the bill is to remove the mandatory confiscation of fair share dues from an employee's paycheck, to get rid of that provision, not in fair share, but just in that provision, will you vote for it?
I will, personally, yes.
What do you think of some of your other colleagues? What are you hearing from them?
I know certain members of the committee who definitely would vote the same way that I would.
Carrie Prescott is an example. I think she's the chair, the House chair.
I think even Senator Rector was in favor of it. But it's whether or not the one or two members who needed to have those conversations over the summer with their constituents, whether or not they've done that. And I haven't communicated with them to know.
There are 10,000 state workers under this provision. I think that's correct. Just how many people did they have to talk to? I guess I'm a little confused by that. I mean, most Maine people don't even know this is going on.
Yeah.
When they find out, they're incensed by it. Not by fair share. I think you'll get varying opinions on that. But by the state acting as a collection agency, people are incensed by it. They don't understand how this happened.
Right.
It happened because we had 40 years of Democrat tyranny in Maine.
Right. Well, and my understanding is it happened. It was a part of a large budget bill.
Well, the original fair share provision was, but the confiscation was a separate bill.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that happened in 2007. No, Governor Baldacci passed it. A lot of members, in fact, I asked them when they voted for the budget, why did you vote to put fair share in? A lot of members did not even know. I had members sitting here in this station, and they didn't realize that provision was in there. I mean, the budget, as you know, is a huge document. Right. It's hard for anyone to understand. Right. It's got a lot of whereases and therefores, and doesn't make a lot of sense. But this other bill, the confiscation piece, is the hard part.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we get it.